Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another Women of Horror Spotlight. Today I have with us, she's an author, and she has a new book out right now that's called The Haunted Inns and Hotels in Virginia. I have with us Susan Swartz. Susan, welcome to the Horror Room.
Oh, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
It's a pleasure having you on.
Oh, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about the Haunted Inns and Hotels in Virginia.
This is the book. I actually got it right here. Let's see if you can see it. This is the new book. It came out in August of last year, and it was a work about 2 years in the making with interviews, research, travel, all that. And I took and got it all down and condensed into a nice little book, and hope everybody will enjoy it. It was really fascinating for me because I'm not really a history buff. And this one kind of took me into a lot of Civil War history and other things as I went through Virginia. It goes from Virginia Beach all the way over to Bristol and kind of follows the 64 corridor as it goes across there. And just visited a whole lot of neat places. I've stayed at about 3 or 4 of the places in the book, so had a lot of fun with it.
All right, so and by me living in Maryland, I'm not that far from Virginia. I've been in Charlottesville, Hampton, Virginia Beach, Richmond, all over. So Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach is probably one of the biggest tourist attractions and I would say destinations in Virginia. What are some haunted hotels and inns in Virginia Beach?
Virginia Beach, the biggest one is the Cavalier. And that sits right on the beachfront down there. And there's a story, Adolf Coors, who had the big beer company way back when. There was, apparently, he fell out of his window when he was staying at the hotel. He fell out of the window. And they don't know if he was pushed or he actually fell. He was in his 80s, so, it could have went either way. But the neat thing was people that visit in today's time, sometimes we'll still hear a thud of where his body kind of fell. It's kind of interesting, and I'll get to that. I'll explain that in a minute. And then there's some other things. There's a ghost cat that wanders through the place, and a little girl apparently was following the cat, and she went into the room where the pool was, and the cat fell in the water, so she tried to get in the water to save the cat, and I think they both drowned, but you can still hear some scratching or some meowing around that area. The thud that I was talking about earlier, in Alexandria, there's another place, the Carlisle House, and they had the same thing happen where I believe it was a psychiatric hospital, and some of the patients would sometimes jump out the window, and you could hear a thud when they hit the ground. And when I was visiting the Carlisle House, I had gone into the front yard, I guess. And I was by myself, nobody else was with me, and I heard some thuds. I was like, well, only ones are still falling. So I kind of understood what they meant about Adolf Coors falling and hearing that thud because I could hear it up there in Alexandria.
And I love Alexandria, Virginia. I try to get there as much as possible. It's a beautiful city. Yeah. But it does have this eerie old town feel to it. I mean, it's definitely. I mean, they built a lot of new condos and houses, and there's a lot of more young people. Since it's in Northern Virginia, it's close to DC, so a lot of young people are now finding residency in there. So it's so close to DC, but you don't have to worry about all that traffic and that bustling and hustling. But it definitely has that old town feel to it.
So those buildings are really, that's why we like to go. It's kind of a step back into history, I guess, because it's not like any other place you've been, and it's mostly older stuff. There's some new stuff, like you said, condos and such, but I think within the town itself, they've kind of tried to keep it still with that old colonial type feel. Well, not colonial, but just old feel from history. It's like taking a step back. Especially if you go to, what's that place? Gadsby's Tavern. That's a really nice step back into history because it's like, wow. So, excuse me, I got something in my eye. But I really enjoy going up there. Sometimes we'll go there, spend the weekend, and just walk around. It's just so pretty.
And I totally agree. Now, another place in Virginia that has a lot of history is Williamsburg, Virginia. Now, tell us about some haunted hotels or inns in Williamsburg.
Most of them were in Colonial Williamsburg, and it was a bunch of them. I want to refer to my book here so I don't tell you wrong. I'm about one, two, three, four, probably about 6 or 7 places, and most of them were a lot of ghosts. Especially in the cabins you could stay in, you'd find them turning on the water. And I had read one story where I believe it was a Chisholm house. Um, they had gone in, the family had moved in, got their, for their vacation, and they had left for the day and had turned everything off, lights and everything. When they got back, the bathroom faucet's on. So the dad went in and turned the faucet off. And they said about 15 minutes later, it was on again. People have said they've heard glasses breaking in the bathroom. The guests get up, go look, there's nothing in the floor, it's nothing there. So a lot of them was that. I believe it was the King Arms Tavern had a ghost named Irma. And what she would do is she would come in and make sure everybody cleaned up correctly and did it to her satisfaction. So she would get behind them and say, I don't know how that transposed, but I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But a lot of the hauntings down there were mostly that, maybe mischievous, or I think most of them are just trying to say, hey, I'm here, just kind of acknowledge me. So they make noises or they'll pinch you or what have you. There's a ghost um, up in Northern Virginia. It's called the Old Town Inn. And Lucy, I think is her name, and she haunts like room 51 to 54 of that particular inn. And she's famous for pulling your sheets off or poking you while you're trying to sleep or pulling at your feet. Or so they very mischievous spirits. But I've never ever read about a bad one or a really mean one. Just mischievous.
Now, you've stayed at some of these hotels and visit some of these hotels and inns. Have you had any experiences while you were staying there?
The first one I can think of was at the Hotel Monaco, which was the Alexandrian. I'm sorry, got that backwards. It's called the Alexandrian now. It was the Hotel Monaco back then. And we went there, and you could hear stuff in the stairwells around, but I never paid attention because I figured it was, just the noise of the people moving around. When I started writing this, I found out a whole lot more, and so we went back up there and stayed the night just to see what we get, and got in one of the stairwells where what had happened there was a Confederate and Union got into a fight, and one of them was killed over a flag. He had come to steal the guy's flag from the top of the house. It was a house way back then before it became a hotel, and they were trying to steal his flag, and he didn't like it, so one got bayoneted to death, and they tore up the flag, and I think the pieces are up at the Smithsonian now of the particular flag that was used. But they also said that at one point Abraham Lincoln's son Tad used to play with it as well. So I don't know the timeline of the flag, but I do know that Tad had played with it and used to bring it with him everywhere he went. The haunting itself was in the stairwell, and the stairwell's like on the front side of the building. And when I got in there, I didn't see anything or notice anything. I always take pictures of the surroundings to see, but didn't get anything on pictures. What I heard was some really old timey music, like back from that era. And my husband was with me, and he said he didn't hear anything. So, but I kept hearing it coming through one of the walls, and I was like, that's kind of weird. But it was of that time frame, so I thought, well, maybe that's it. I have heard stories of other guests. They've seen like shadows in the hallways, or just things moving across that you could explain those, like lights or little sparkly things. So they have a lot of going on there.
Yeah. Now, what got you into? Because I'm a huge paranormal fan, as well as
Mm-hmm.
horror fan, and anything spooky, and so I'm a huge paranormal fan. So I go to, I go across the country and I go on a lot of ghost tours, especially cities like Richmond, Virginia. I want a ghost tour there, and that have these historical meaning behind them. And a lot of times there's a lot of conflict, whether it be the Civil War or even during the Revolutionary War. So, what got you into the history, following the history, and as well as the paranormal side of Virginia?
Oh, well, I got started on the paranormal side when I was younger because we were kind of the weird family. We take pictures at funerals, or we stayed at the graveyard till we threw the last bit of dirt on the grave. That's just what I was used to, and I was brought up like that, not to be afraid of death. And as I got older, I think it was a grandmother of mine passed away, and I heard her call me outside. And I walked outside, and nobody's there. So it kind of got started inkling there, and I left it for a while. And then when I got into the Virginia Writers Club, and I guess it was around 2006-ish, I met another lady who does ghost books down here in Virginia, Pamela Kinney. And
I know Pamela. I actually had on my show, yes.
Yeah, I think she's got like 6 or 7 out now. But she got me into it because we had started Hemmed and Hawed for about 2 years. And she says, well, I did everything west to Virginia Beach in that way. She says, well, you live in Goochland, you could do, western like Charlottesville and on further. And the Haunted Charlottesville, I'll show it to you. The Haunted Charlottesville book and surrounding counties covers from Madison down to Goochland. And I got into it because she had told me, we need something that way, and I'd be the perfect person to do it. So that's how I kind of got into it. As far as the history, like I said before, I'm not really a history buff, but I learned so much with the 2 books pertaining to the Civil War, pertaining to just anything, that was kind of going on back in those days. There was one place in the Haunted Charlottesville book had Hessian soldiers that would march through the room or try to steal your covers. So it covers a whole lot of history, and I had to do all that research because you got the haunting, but you really want to find out what caused that haunting and why these people are still living as they do, so to speak, in the location, because I have found that it's always usually the location. It's not the house or the building or anything. It's something that happened right there on that spot on some particular day. And so I just had to, bounce through a lot of history, a lot of happenings, a lot of interviews, just to find out what is the real story. And that's what I tried to present. Now, you may go another day and hear something totally different, but the history is not going to change as to what happened.
It's totally true. And you brought up Charlottesville. I had the pleasure of going to Charlottesville probably about 5, I want to say it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm telling you right now, if anybody who's never been to Charlottesville, I know you've heard about the tiki torches and stuff like that. Listen, take that out of your mind. It is a beautiful place. I know that's what it's famous for now, but it is a beautiful city. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you're a wine connoisseur, there's plenty of vineyards. But one thing about Charlottesville, when it comes to hotels or places to stay, there's a lot of bed and breakfasts, and I had the pleasure to stay at a bed and breakfast there. Now, do you have any Charlottesville bed and breakfasts?
I have. Let me. Again, I'm just gonna take a quick peek. It's been about 3 or 4 years before I did this. Yeah, I have 4 actually, but my favorite one in here was in at Court Square. And that's over in the very kind of town-like of Charlottesville. You can't miss it. It's got a big red door. And they had a neat little guy. His name was John, and he was a porter for the place back in the day. And he would take the guest luggage to their room. And he passed away. And every time the owner would go past that, up the stairway, there was a three-finger, I guess you call it, a 3-finger sconce on the wall. And every time she'd go up the wall, the sconce would fall. And she said one day she went up and one of the candles from the sconce blew out at her. She didn't even know how. She said nobody was with her that day. And they went back and were looking through history of the place and everything, and they found out about John. And what she finally wound up doing, I think, was taking a eulogy that she had found that had been from his funeral and plugging it up in the wall where they apparently had some water damage or some leakage in the wall. And so she took the eulogy, stuck it in the wall. That stopped the problem. They don't know how. They kind of stuck it in the wall, and the leak stopped. And she said the problem with the sconce and everything stopped then too. So I don't know if he just wanted acknowledgement that, hey, I'm still here, you know. But she said that took care of the problem, and they haven't had a problem since. So I thought it was kind of neat. That's a good way to, you know, kind of say, hey, I know you're here, and here you go.
Now, Susan, are you impressed with my knowledge of the state of Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's nice to talk to somebody that's been so many places because,
Yes.
you know, some of these places I went to, and they're like, oh, we've never been there. We've never been there. So it's really neat that you've been, you know, you have a frame of reference.
Yes, I've been at the. Now, I'm going to ask you about a small city that has a huge African American population. And I don't know if you have a story about that. Hampton, Virginia. Do you have any stories about Hampton, Virginia?
Hampton. Now, is Hampton near Portsmouth, or
Yes.
am I thinking of the wrong place?
I believe it's near Portsmouth.
Because
Yes.
Portsmouth, I have a place in here. It's called, and I want to make sure I tell you right. I don't want to tell you wrong. Give me just a second just to check on this because I don't want to. Yeah, it's the one I'm thinking of. It's the Glencoe Inn, which is in Portsmouth. And the neat thing about this was there was a little grandmotherly type lady, and she had a lovely rose garden in the backyard. And after she passed away, they always said she'd come visit. You could smell roses through the house at certain times, and they always thought it was her coming back to visit. But the neat thing about Glencoe Inn is if you walk down to the other end of the street, I think it's called the Grice Neely House. And the neat thing there is when you go into the yard, there's a porch and there's a step. You have to step up on to get up onto the porch. It's a tombstone. It's just a square tombstone there, but it's just a neat little thing. So I went down and took a picture of that too because I thought it was kind of neat. But that's the only one I know of in Hampton. I don't think I had anything else.
So I'm gonna ask you your personal opinion. So I work in the death care industry. You know, I work in the funeral industry. I work at cemeteries. I worked at cemeteries my whole entire life and funeral homes. Mm-hmm. So I've seen my own paranormal stuff. I could write a book on. But
you should.
Yes, I know.
I would read that.
Well, one thing I've noticed is, like, even with my own personal experience, like, you know, when it comes to the cemetery, the old gravedigger, he comes to work. I mean, who died hundreds of years ago, he still comes to work every day. You know, why do you feel like when it comes to spirits and where the last person when someone died, where they died, that's the place that they usually frequent, or that's their eternal home?
Well, in that case, I mean, people back then, they did an honest day's work, and I think because I remember my dad saying that to me a lot of times. You know, I always do an honest day's work, and I think that I mean, even after he retired, he would still come out here and help me, like cut grass or do something, and you know, he said, you know, I'm doing my day's work, and I think they just had that ingrained in them back then. You know, you do a day's work, you get a day's pay. And I think he's still trying to get his, you know, he's still doing his job because he feels like he ought to. But as far as other things that happen, the things I've read about the most with people like that, like especially with traumatic things like a fire, a murder, drowning, they tend to stay in that one place. And I don't, of course, I don't know the reason, but my opinion you asked for is that I think they keep reliving it in hopes that one day they'll get through it. You know, instead of drowning, I made it to the edge of the pool and I got out. Or that's my thought. They keep on trying to redo it so it's got a better outcome. Some of them, I think, stay behind because they don't want to leave somebody. Maybe they had a child or maybe elderly parent or something they didn't want to leave behind. And I think some are just like I said. I know of a hotel in Las Vegas that had a fire. I think it was the Bali. They say about 2, 3 o'clock every morning, you'll see these people running down the hallway, and there was a fire at that hotel back then, and they're trying to get away from the fire. So I think there's many reasons for spirits to stick around. You just kind of have to delve into like history we were talking about before and try to figure out what's happening. It's very sad, but I always tell them, if I know there's something there, hey, go to the light, or maybe it's time for you to move to the next level. But they're certainly not going to do what you want them to do at any other time. So all you can do is say, hey, maybe you need to go to the next level or whatever. But some of them, they're just going to stay where they stay. So.
Does that sound like torture? I mean, imagine if you had to relive a traumatic event, or imagine if you had to go to your job every single day for all eternity. Like that does not sound like fun to me.
No, and I tell you, there's now that you brought that up, there's another place in the hotel book, Belle Grove Plantation, which is in Prince George, and there's a caretaker there, Baldwin Lee, and he's got his own little house. It's like when you walk out the front door of Plantation, it's catacornered over there. And he apparently is very mischievous, very mean. He'll show up as like a skeleton in your picture. He makes loud noises when people are in his house. He doesn't want them in there. He just wants to be left alone. And Michelle Darnell, who runs the plantation, she's a little bit sensitive, and every time she goes in the house, she'll get like a stomach ache or a headache or something because he doesn't want her in there. He just wants you to go away and leave him alone. And so they finally came to an understanding. She went and saw him where he's buried. He's apparently buried about 5 miles from where Belle Grove is. So she went to a neutral spot to talk to him and tell him, hey, you can stay as long as you want, but you have to, be nice to people that are coming into your house. And I think she said she spoke with him for about half hour, 45 minutes, went back to Belle Grove, and when she went back in his house, it felt a whole lot lighter. She said he's still mischievous, but he's way better than he was. And they found out that he was holding actually a number of enslaved spirits with him. And so she got him to let those go, and she told him he can stay as long as he wants, and they come to an understanding. So I think, and he, like I said, he was caretaker of that plantation. So I think he's staying there because, number one, it's his house. And number two, I think he still wants to oversee the plantation and make sure it still runs correctly. So yeah, it does sound like torture, but I think it's also something that's very familiar and maybe very comforting to the spirit too. So it depends on the situation.
I agree. Now, one place that I would think that would be, you hear about cemeteries, hotels, especially hotels. You hear a lot of hotels, hospitals. I don't hear a lot about people. More people die in hospitals. Or working in the funeral industry, I notice more people die in hospitals than anywhere else in the whole entire world. And I'm shocked that you don't hear more and more stories about paranormal things happen in hospitals.
Well, being a nurse myself, I know exactly what you're saying. Because I was OR, so we, saw our share of that. But I was trying to think of that story. I had a friend, and she was new to nursing, and she worked on this floor, maybe a hospice floor or a step-down unit. It was, acute care. And they had this room, and the bells would go off, and then the alarm would sound. And I asked her, I said, well, what'd you find out? What did you? She goes, no electrical problems, nothing. She goes, I'd walk down there, turn everything off, go back to the station, and about 10 minutes later, it would happen again. And she got to asking around to the other nurses on the floor, and they said, yeah, it was a little lady in there, and she had passed about a week before my friend started working on the floor, and said what she would do is she would ring her bell, her nurse's bell, and if we didn't answer in a certain amount of time, she'd hit the alarm.
Oh,
She's still down there trying to say, "Hey, I still need
yeah.
help. Get down here." But I've heard of that. I've heard of people seeing apparitions, like in empty floors that are not being used at the time. I've heard of nurses losing things and showing up in another patient's room. So yeah, I think hospitals have their fair share of hauntings, but I think for the most part, unless it was like one I said before, maybe it was a fire, a murder, some kind of a trauma. I think they're gonna. I tend to think those people that are, um, what am I trying to say? That pass violently. I think
Mhm.
they may stick in the hospital, whereas the ones that kind of just passed, softly as opposed to the other way, kind of go on their way. And coming back to that torture thing, now I've got to relive this till I get it right. And that really breaks my heart. So you know, but I haven't had that many experiences myself, and Lord knows I've been in I go down stairwells and everything else in the dead of night. So, but I've never seen much in a hospital. Now, I've seen cemetery. I've seen um, never even saw anything in the couple of times I've been in the morgue. But cemeteries, hotels. I've even heard of them on cruise ships, but I've never seen anything. So
Oh,
that'll be my
wow.
next book, Haunted Cruise Ships. Just kidding. Um, but I think you can find spirits anywhere, but unless you are really looking for them, you probably won't see them.
Now, Susan, where can everyone find you on social media?
I'm on Facebook. It's Susan Schwartz author. Just look me up on Facebook. On Twitter, well, I guess it's X now.
Hmm.
Also under Susan Schwartz. I am on Instagram. I think it's Susan.Schwartz3. I'm very new to that, so bear with me. And then I also have a website, www.susanschwartzauthor.com. And that's
Okay.
SCHWARTZ.
And where can they find your work?
If you go to my website, I have a big page with my books on it. Also, any of the major bookstores will carry anything. If you want something and you can't find it, there is a contact page on my website. Just write to me, and I will try to help you find what you want.
Perfect. And the link to Susan's website will be down in the description box. So please click on that. Susan, are you doing any horror conventions in Virginia soon? Are there any horror book conventions coming up soon? I know that Fright Reads just happened in Williamsburg.
Yeah, they had that one. They have, and I don't know when these are, but I know there's Scares at Cares is coming in Williamsburg. They just
Yes.
had RavenCon here in Glen Allen, and there's another one coming up. I can't remember the name of it, but there's some Bigfoot cons coming up, like in Withville, in the next couple of months. The big thing I do is what's it called? Monster Fest down in Chesapeake, Virginia, at the Chesapeake Library. It's like a day, like from 9 to 2, 9 to 3, something like that. And it's just monsters and stuff. It's really neat. That's about the only horror
Really?
I did. Yeah, it's really, I enjoy that. There's a long way to travel living in Goochland, but it's a lot of fun, and I get to see some people every year that I do it every year. And then the other one that I know that the Horror Writers Association will be in is the Hanover Writers Festival in November, which is over in Mechanicsville. And we do those every year. So
Awesome. All right, everybody, we get a chance. Go down to the description. Definitely check out her books. Susan, it's been an absolute blast having you on.
oh, thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And
And I hope to see you in Virginia.
oh yes,
One day
let me know
soon.
anytime, and we'll meet up. And
Most definitely.
I'll tell you some more stories as soon as I probably have some more by then.
I know I'm gonna be in Richmond because they have. I think it's called something. It's called Richmond. It's a horror convention in Richmond in October. I want to say. I know I'll be in Richmond. I guess that's probably the closest. That's, now I'll be in Hampton, Virginia too. I'll be in Hampton and Richmond coming up. So by the way, the horror room will be in Virginia a lot of horror conventions. So definitely, if you
Yes.
see us, to say hi. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming to the horror room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that is Susan Swartz. We'll
Hi.
see you next time. Take care.
Bye bye.